What's in your library? This week on the Blue Collar Proud Show. Hey there, Proud Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. It's the show that's all about having and living the blue collar business dream. I hope you guys are having a great week, doing what you set out to do. I know Mondays you create a list for things you want to knock out during the week, and here it is on Wednesday. And I hope if you're listening when this show aired, that is, or when it first drops. But here it is Wednesday, and you're probably going, man, I got a few things done. Got a lot more to do before Friday gets here.
That's it. That's the way it goes.
But Taylor and I are always excited to be along for the ride and your journey of success. My name is Carter Harkins, and with me every week across the table here, within spitting distance.
Just don't do it. Don't do it.
It's Taylor Hill.
Well, it's you know what, you said that, and it kind of feels like that for me this week. So I'm sitting there going, I got more stuff to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to do, right?
There's a lot to do. You know what would we do if there wasn't a lot to do? I mean, you ever think about that? I know you would smoke a cigar and
sit on the porch with some good bourbon, not brandy, bourbon.
So brandy would work too.
Well, I wouldn't turn my nose up at brandy, but I prefer a good bourbon.
Yeah.
Anyway, this topic actually kind of relates to being so busy, you know, because this is at the top of the list of things people will cut from their schedule if they are just crazy busy and pressed for time.
Yeah.
Which is reading.
Yeah.
And reading, as we know, as anyone who is heading a company, getting knowledge, training, experience, coaching, all of those things is absolutely necessary for growth. And reading is one of the best places to get that.
Yeah, I just read an article in a blue collar magazine, a plumbing magazine. I'm not quite sure what the magazine was, but it talked about a guy that literally was in business, and what he said is he would get 4 to 6 employees and then lose 4 to 6 employees, and then get 4 to 6 employees and lose 4 to 6 employees, and he couldn't figure out what was going on.
I read the same article. It was in Plumber Magazine, right?
Yeah. And wasn't that interesting what he said, that when he started reading, all of a sudden things changed for him. And he even went so far to put an attitude meter where his guys would meter his attitude, and when he put it up there, they were giving him a 6, and one of his guys said, "Good thing you didn't do this last year. You'd have been getting zeros
every day."
Every day.
I remember that.
And he said now he gets 9s, but he attributes it to reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expanding his knowledge to understand how to do better at what's required of him, right?
Yeah.
It's the idea that when we grow to a certain level, we have to be what that level needs.
That's
or
right.
We can't go any further. And if we want to go to the next level, then we have to grow ahead of what we've got in order to prepare the way, right?
Yeah.
You don't get a garden until you till the soil.
That's true.
You got to do the work first before you can see the fruit. So,
and it's lined out really well in John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. If anybody wants a book to start with, that's one.
Yeah, it's
leadership
a great one.
Yeah, that kind of talks about the law of the lid. That's what that is. So
yeah.
that's really good. So tell me a little bit about your reading habits, because I know you're a huge reader.
Yeah, in years past, I've been an even bigger reader than I have been lately. And I'll confess, I read fewer books now than I did. But there's a reason for that, and I'm more choosy, I think, about the books that I do read, and I will vet them a little bit harder before I start into one. What I realized was that oftentimes I would read so much and so many different ideas that it would sometimes distract me from really committing to learn something and start implementing and practicing it.
Yeah.
So I would just read it and go, yeah, I read that, and I'd hear other people talking about it and how they're actually implementing those things in their lives. And I start thinking, what was it that book said about that? What are you doing exactly? Oh, I need to go back and reread that. So when I realized that that's what I was doing, I stopped and I started reading fewer books, and I'll take a little bit longer with them. Marinate on them, talk about them more with people that I know have read them, or people who I think are actually living out the things that these leadership books talk about. And not just leadership, books about everything, marketing, whatever. And so I'm trying to internalize a little bit more. So my reading, typically my habit is I read a lot in the evenings, mornings and evenings. So I'll sometimes get up in the morning. I like to read shorter things in the morning, articles, things like that. At night, I like to go deeper. And so typically after I put my son to bed, I'll sit and I'll read for a couple of hours on nights that I read. And I don't read every single night, but at least 3 or 4 nights a week, I try to read for an hour at least.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I know our guest today has a heck of a list of really good books.
Yeah, and this is going to be book after book after book. I just want to tell you right now, if you're driving and listening to this, don't worry. You can find this list in the show notes for this episode, and there will be links to all of the places where you can buy them on Amazon, so links to each book. And our guest today is somebody who's been on the show several times, Kenny Chapman with the Blue Collar Success Group. And, when we reached out to him and told him, look, this is our topic, we'd love to have you on the show, but I don't even know, are you a reader? And he was like, yeah, I'm a reader. I'm a leader.
That's it.
So
hey, leaders are readers. That's
right.
It.
So we had him on, and I thought it was cool. I saw a post on Facebook where he just asked his the people that he knows in his circle, hey guys, I'm going to be on a podcast, and they've asked me for my list of books that have really impacted me, which I definitely have that list, but I'm just curious, what are your ideas? And some people were jumping in, and that was really neat. I appreciated him doing that. So without any further ado, let's get Kenny on the show. Let's talk to him about his list, his top 10, if you will, and then we'll go from there and come back and chat a little bit more. Joining us on the phone today is Kenny Chapman with Blue Collar Success Group. Hey, man.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Glad to have you on. I'm glad we're talking to you today. One of the things that we believe around here is that leaders are readers, and I know you agree with that. And we just wanted to reach out to you and say, hey, what books are you reading that you think are good to share with your team? What books are you reading about leadership that are good for you, or about business that are good for you as a leader? And maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. As you know, we agree on a lot of things, and one of those is that leaders are readers, and maybe leaders are listeners in today's world. A lot of us in the blue collar space maybe as well read, and so I want to handle that objection right now. If you're listening to this, everything we're going to talk about today can be listened to as well. So don't get caught up in turning the pages as you drift off to sleep in the bed, right? It's about, where do we go from here? And I think that one of the key books, I think, that, I'm going to talk about some things that are a little more timeless than like hip and new, because a lot of hip and new is pulling things from timeless and making it make sense in today's world and from people's perspectives. And as an author, I know that. But one of the books I really love is The Slight Edge from Jeff Olson. Mm-hmm. I think that with team, I think it's important as driven entrepreneurs and driven leaders, I think it's important for our team to understand that we do know it's one step at a time. And sometimes we need to remember that. And so as much as, everything we talk about recommending to our team, I recommend that we continue to read ourselves as well. But, that one step at a time philosophy is so important for team to understand, because, success by the inch is a cinch, but we are taught through TV and now internet and all the self-development things, a lot of business consulting, everything teaches a quantum leap, right? And so we all look for this massive jump, and I'm going to win the lottery in business this year and everything's going to be a windfall, when the reality is, if I just eat my salad and go to the gym and do my 20 minutes of cardio and this and that, I really get predictable results and have a really profitable, really freedom-driven company, but we get away from those things.
Mm-hmm. Man, that is so true. I was actually thinking about that the other day, that if people understood that the leaps come from the everyday minutia. I mean, that's what happens. You keep your head down. You do the things you have to do day in and day out, and then every once in a while you get a quantum leap.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah. That's the way it works.
It is. And it's not, and I think that our team also sees that we want, we're leaders, we're we're entrepreneurs, we're optimists, right? So we even speak the quantum leap. We talk it in business plans and strategic plans. So I think it's really important that we set people free by wins on a daily basis. And if our team isn't set up and you don't have a culture and a process and a system in order for people to win daily, then you're going to have short runs of team, and retention is going to be key as we move into more and more labor opportunities within our spaces.
It's that incrementalism. I think it was the Japanese, the Kaizen model or lean philosophy that says, it's not about retooling and changing everything all at once. It's about doing something 1% better today than we did it yesterday, and then 1% better the next day than we did it the day before, and just constantly moving that needle, constantly improving systems, constantly improving, processes and skills and behaviors and workflows until suddenly that 1% a day or that 1% a week starts to add up. And at the end of the year, you've got massive change. But it's that, like you said, success by the inch is a cinch. It's incrementalism. But man, it's the most powerful growth opportunity that any business has. And I think a lot of times you're right. We miss it because we keep thinking it's going to be like a lottery thing where it's a sudden windfall.
And the thing is, the compounding effect of that, though, well, there's another good book actually, The Compound Effect, but that is it's interesting. I'm moving from Colorado to Arizona at the time we're speaking right now, and I was going through a bunch of stuff, and I found self-development things that I was writing and sales letters I was writing when I got out of the military, targeting military guys that weren't out yet to supplement their income. And that was before I launched my plumbing company or anything. And as I look back at that, I go, wow, I've been jacked up and wired this way a long, long time. And now all of a sudden in my late 40s, it appears as though, wow, so, best-selling author and international speaker and consultant, and ran a company and sold it and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, and I don't know if some of it's my age because I am approaching 50, but it's like, wow, I never wanted to be that guy. Like, you don't want to hear your dad or your uncle or whatever. But as I approach this, it's like, really, it is that simple. Success is simple. And it's really just a matter of, and again, to what we're reading today, you skip or talking about reading, you skip a day, you skip a week. The next thing you know, you're listening to radio. The next thing you know, you got, God forbid, the friggin' news on. The next thing you know, you're right, and all of a sudden you went from this positive mental food to the negative toxicity that we see on a daily basis that literally the driven leader must protect ourselves from.
Boy, that is so true.
It's true.
And it's happened too with me, not with the news because I can't hardly stand the news, but Netflix. Like, I just, at the end of the day, I'd rather turn on Netflix for an hour and just watch something mind-numbing that just lulls me to sleep rather than try to read a book and force myself to learn. But I have to constantly stay vigilant to make time for that reading because that's where, that is one of the largest sources of new information, new knowledge, world-changing ideas, the little nugget that shows up that makes everything change, makes everything better. So, there's so many opportunities, so many options for ways to spend our time. It could be social media, it could be a lot of things, but staying vigilant is huge.
It really is, and I think that as you're remembering, as you're listening to this and thinking about books, anything I'm talking about today is kind of timeless. And I think it's important to what you just said, that really the power is going through. We could probably read the 10 same books over and over, but we change. Look at the Bible, right? I mean, as you read the same word, but you change as a human being, as your path and your walk or whatever. And so the same is true of reread the same thing. I mean, there's certain books you probably ought to read every single year, right?
Oh, there are some that I try to read frequently.
Yes.
Well, that's good. What else is on your list, Kenny?
So I am a huge fan of the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz.
Yeah.
And now, okay, stay with us, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it's a Toltec wisdom book about their, that kind of spirituality. But the reason I speak to this is I ran a plumbing, heating, air conditioning company for 24 years, and I sold it to a long-term management team when I exited the company. And we ran our company based on, we literally had in our core values the 4 agreements, and in our leadership team we would talk openly about the 4 agreements: being impeccable with your word, speaking your truth, even if it's uncomfortable, if it's challenging amongst a team member, whatever, you have got to speak your truth. Right. So then if that becomes part of your culture, you kind of part of your philosophy. Number 2, don't take things personally. If you get a leadership team and start building a culture around people, don't think, oh man, Carter was really crappy to me today. I wonder what I did. I wonder what I did. I wonder what I did. Oh, Carter had a bad day. Maybe it's not about me at all. And I don't have to have all this negative mind noise or go, hey man, I didn't really like how you talked to me this morning. Everything good? Oh yeah, I got this stuff going. Whatever. Don't take things personally. Number 3, don't make assumptions, right? So think about how much, we were just joking about the news. The news is driven on assumption. It's like just painting a negative picture of what's possible or what might happen. And people live in fear. And so, it's no different than in sales. If people don't get a question answered, they'll answer it themselves. Same is true with team. If people are making assumptions in the organization, then now they're jumping to conclusions and wrecking what a leader's vision may be trying to execute, right? And then the last and certainly not least, always do your best. And that might seem like that could get swept under the rug, but we all know the fact. I still go in the field, and our coaches and team go, and we do ride-alongs with service businesses and in-home service companies. And I know sometimes we're not always doing our best, right? And so I think it's important that we keep those things in front of us. So every team member, I believe, should read that book right there. I think it's amazing.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic book too. Yeah.
Short read too. It's not long.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm all about the I'm all about the short read. Speaking of, who moved my cheese?
Oh yes.
There you go.
It's a kind of a timeless, but I believe it should be part of onboarding process if you're running a progressive company, if you have a progressive leadership mindset, think about the concept behind Who Moved My Cheese, because many people are watching the news. The things that we're talking about, protecting ourselves from leaders, you got to understand your team they're not conditioned to protect themselves. Most of them fall asleep with a can of beer in one hand and the news feeding them negativity in the other sometimes, right? So some of this we've got to really be able to lead and pierce through, and it's very, very important that we're mindful about these things as leaders. It's our responsibility, guys.
Yeah.
I've heard so many leaders say that the reason that they, that part of what leadership is for them is to share the good information that they've gotten that has helped shape them as leaders. So passing books along to your team, and even requiring that certain books be read, like you said, Who Moved My Cheese, that should be a part of an onboarding process. It should be required reading. I like that idea, and I think it's something that leaders realize is that the goal of my leadership is to create new leaders. So I'm going to share the things that have been instrumental in my journey of leadership and becoming better at what I do. I'm going to turn around and make sure that other people are equipped with that same information.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, I think one of the best ideas that we heard of, and we actually implemented it here, is to have a library of books available for anybody. So when we read something that we like, there are times we'll get 3 or 4 copies and just have them in our library so that our team, our leadership team, anybody on staff can get it. And we have an open policy too, that if you have a book you want to read about something, let us know. We'll buy it. And I love that. Yeah, and so we do a lot of that here, and have done it in the past, and literally had to go buy bookshelves because we had stacks of books everywhere, so we had to put them on that. So I just think it was a great idea. We just kind of implemented because we love to read and thought it would be great for our staff to have that available. So if any of you guys out there are listening, and you want to make those things available to your team, invest in it. It's not expensive. Nah. And boy, for the return you get for people reading those great books, oh my gosh, it's cheap. Cheapest ROI you'll ever get in growth.
100%. 100%. And remember, as a leader, everything you do and don't do, they're watching, right? And so it's one thing you can get out in front of your team and rah and go, hey, I'm a big fan of reading, and I think you should read these books. But if there's a place in your space where all of a sudden, there's this shared library, and check one out or take one, or it's on the buddies system, the loan, whatever it is. But now all of a sudden, I've seen it where clients have these, whether it's a room or a wall or whatever, and if nothing else, you're sending a message that I'm walking my walk.
Mm-hmm.
So no, the picture's worth 1,000 words in sales. You're selling your team. We forget that everything revolves around sales. So you're selling your team on improving their information and protecting their mind and all those different types of things. So when we make it focal and it is something that we kind of hang our hat on, now it becomes so much more powerful than just, mentioning, oh, I read a great book recently, this or that. Yeah. Love that, man. Great comment.
Good stuff. So what else is on that list?
So another one that I'm a big fan of is The Power of Habit.
Mm-hmm.
Charles, I don't know, Duhigg,
Yep.
Duhigg.
It's the book that changed our world.
Is that right?
Oh man, yeah, that's what got us started on us having to change our entire culture, and we realized it started with the two of us.
Right?
Yeah, isn't that amazing how that works? When you just think that everything is everybody else's fault, and then one day you go,
oh shoot,
it's us.
It's like, yeah, man, I can't run any longer, right? Absolutely. I think, and I think Tony Robbins says it best, we're not 100% committed to our goals. We're not 100% committed to our standards, but we are 100% committed to our habits.
Mm-hmm.
And you can read anything you want all day long, but at some point, the Slide Edge addresses that habit, the 4 agreements. You've got to implement a habit change in order to do those types of things. So I think we're really taking habit head on, and you guys just said it. It's a game changer when you really start having those work for you rather than against you, which so many of us have.
Man, that's so true.
That's truth. I have nothing else to say.
I think the other thing to be mindful of too, all of you on the line, that don't be afraid, man. Get over your fear of, well, what if I give this good team member a book that it's about entrepreneur mindset? Oh my gosh, what if they decide they want to hang their shingle? What if they learn so much they don't need me? I built a self-managing company that I didn't walk through the doors for 6.5 months straight. And did I have challenges? Certainly at different times and different things like that. But I grew people. And at the end of the day, I think it's your responsibility to go, if they're going to leave you, whether they have the information or not, they're leaving you because they're missing something. And so your responsibility as a leader is to create the environment that serves you and your team. And I think, a book that completely changed my life, it probably started with Unlimited Power, but I'm a huge fan of Awaken the Giant Within from Tony Robbins. It's an old, huge book. I'm talking about a Bible, but what we need to remember about that and timeless stuff is Tony wrote that right on the heels of when he was working for Jim Rohn.
Yeah.
And so, you can't scour the internet or find anything he's one of the original gurus of this space of kind of controlling your mind. And so when you get team members to read that and see how those types of things can show up in their role at your organization, look out. Now you've got momentum.
That's so true. The people that say, well, if I train my people, they're going to leave me. Yeah, but what if they stay?
That's it. Yeah, and we see companies all the time. It's everywhere. I shot a Facebook Live for my following this past week. I was at my place in Colorado. As I said, we're moving. You guys appreciate this. There was a fencing contractor across the street from my house relieving himself in the street, but kind of tucked back behind. He had a utility box on the pickup, so he's stuck kind of stuck in there urinating in the neighborhood.
Oh.
And so I went, you know what, when you think about this, we're talking about reading, we're talking about leadership. Pretty sure the leader didn't know that was going on. But what I will tell you this about leadership, I'll bet you that gentleman doesn't have one-on-ones with his direct report manager.
Mm-hmm.
Challenge me on that. Go find that guy and tell me, no, Kenny, he meets once a week. He meets once a month. He meets once a quarter. See, you've got to realize that you've got to read this. You've got to ingest it. You've got to feed it forward, and you've got to continue to paint the picture. Because we're talking about it's hard for us to stay on point and in habit and continuing to read. It is nice to kick something on and just watch some mindless TV. Our mind's engaged all the time and all these different things, right? So very important we remember and be easy with our team. It's hard for them to do too.
Yeah. And, that's one of the things I think most leaders of companies take for granted, that their people are going to be just like them. And I think what we have to do is we didn't become who we are without some help and without some training and some assistance and guardrails and all those things along the way. It's our responsibility to help those. It's kind of help the one behind you up to your level so you can go to the next level. So we need to remember that. And one of the ways that we can do that is really put some really good material in front of them and give them the opportunity that if they want to rise to the occasion, they can.
They can, yes. Thank you for that. I mean that's amazing, because that flies in the face of fear and embraces abundance. And, and I would say the other part is that studies say that only 3% of us are truly genetically wired like entrepreneurs. So what happens is a lot of people go into business because it's quote unquote pseudo American dream or whatever, basically because they work for a bunch of bad companies, right? So certainly in the blue collar world, I know that's why a lot of people start their own companies, is because, well, okay, this is going on, or that's going on, or whatever. And I think it's important that part of your responsibility as the driven entrepreneur is to help your team understand. Right. So when I started really going, God, I am jacked up, man. I'm wired so different than anybody I know. I got to teach my team why I'm different than most people. Now they really begin to respond. Killer book called Driven. Douglas Brackman, Randy Kelly. They run some meditation stuff around shooting and different things where really you understand your driven mind is just like, some of us are wired like hunters still, and most of us as entrepreneurs, you hit your budget last year, what's the budget this year, what's the next one, back to when you're worried you're going to run out of food. There's like a little possible genetic disorder in me that goes, no, I'm not going to run out of food. And I'm going, well, wait a minute, I got to get up and kill something today because I got to. And so I think that when our team really understands that, they go, oh, okay, he's in his hunter mode. A lot of people are fine being in the village where we're bringing the game back or whatever have you. It's just, I think it's important that, one, you understand yourself as a leader, and then two, get confident enough and comfortable enough within yourself to go, hey, this is who I am, and not only is this okay, it actually really serves everybody in this organization, as long as we understand what our unique abilities are and how we can bring those to the table.
That's good stuff.
Anything else on your list?
Oh man, I got all kinds of. Always got stuff.
We may have to bring him back for part 2.
Can't talk about books without Cialdini's Influence, Psychology of Persuasion.
Yes.
Amazing communication tools in there. I think that people get caught up between sales and persuasion and communication, and tied to that, I'm actually proud of it, because I have copy number 349,496 of How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh wow!
And it's the old original kind of cool first jacket from that book, and I use some of that concept in one of the sales schools that we teach at Blue Collar Success Group, and I think it's interesting because when people really dive back in and read something as timeless as How to Win Friends and Influence People, I think that there can be a reminder. See, we kick on the thing that, oh, everything's changing so fast, and nobody wants to talk anymore. They want a text message. They want this, they want that. But the fact is, the philosophies that Carnegie's mother taught him at such a young age. I mean, that book was published in 1937, and the philosophies are still 100% applicable today. And I think it's important for us to remember that. Yes, there's a lot changing. There's a lot platform-wise. Technology's at a faster pace than ever. Information, the access to knowledge, the access to info, the access to expertise, never at a rate like what we have. And we can get caught up into that, thinking that we have to have the very next, rather than going, you know what, some philosophy that was penned in 1937 can change my life today.
Yeah, that's one of the books that I read once a year. Yep. I have it both. I read it and I listen to it. And one of the things that I will say about that particular book, and I totally agree with you, it doesn't matter how fast technology and how fast information comes, we are wired for relationships.
That's a fact.
People are wired for relationships. That book is all about how to not take advantage, but how to understand the wiring of how we are with relationships and to move forward in relationships in a very positive and communicative way.
Yeah, in a meaningful way. That's the challenge is, I mean, if you're winning friends and influencing people, that's where some people get stuck, especially people that have built-in blockers around sale. Oh, well, if I'm winning friends, then I'm beating them or whatever, rather than understanding the reality is, if I'm adding value to our relationship, then I'm winning you as a friend.
Yeah.
See, so that's the deal, is really it's more about how you understand how you can add value to the world and other people's lives. And it goes back to Zig. I could have a bunch. I don't have any Zig books on my list today, but if you're helping other people get what they want, you're going to be able to do the same. And I think it's important that we remember those things.
You've got 9 books by my count here on the list, and I want you to tell me for number 10 about a book that you just wrote.
All right, fair enough. So certainly a must read. In-home sales acceleration, how to create raving fans, increase sales, and improve your online reputation in 30 days or less. This book I wrote basically at my client's request. We do a lot of training and we teach a lot of relationship and communication skills for the verticals that if an industry really, I say, if you cross the threshold of a door, if you're going in to have in-home communication, at the table sales of any kind, this is our 12-step process for the ultimate client experience. And our clients wanted it, so it's a simple read. I always say that this is my second book, and if I write a book and if I write a third, guys, it's also going to be an easy read. Grammatically simple. That's who the author is.
That's awesome. Those are the books that get read.
That's it.
That's a fact.
Awesome. So where can people find it, Kenny?
So you can pick it up at Amazon or thebluecollarsuccessgroup.com, and definitely pick up your copy there.
Awesome. Well, man, thanks for being on. We're going to include the full list because I think you might have some other books on there as well on your list. So we're going to include it with the show notes this week. And if you want to get a hold of Kenny, check him out over there at thebluecollarsuccessgroup.com. Kenny Chapman, thank you for being on, sir.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, that was great information, a lot of good suggestions for books. But Taylor, I want you to talk for a minute to the person who's listening who's like, oh my gosh, they're recommending I read. I hate reading. I'm a slow reader. I'm dyslexic, or, I never find time. I try to read, but I fall asleep. I'm reading the same sentence 8 times, and still don't know what it means. Talk to that person about what they can do to actually begin reading.
So I'm going to come out of the closet and let people know I understand this, because I am dyslexic and I get it. I really do. And one of the things that infuriates me is when people say, if you don't have a hardcover book and are reading the hardcover book, you don't comprehend. Guys, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Everybody has different learning styles. I comprehend really well listening to books. So the first thing I would tell you is make a plan. If you enjoy a hardcover book, and I do read those too, it just takes me 3 times as long as most people. I mean, you and I have read the same book, and you're done in 3 days, and it takes me 3 weeks to read it. So don't judge yourself. That's number one. Just make a plan and stick to it. If your plan is all you can do is read 3 pages a night, read those 3 pages. You have reached your goal, okay? And just do it. Just make it consistent. That's the first thing. The other thing is some people will say, yeah, I've got all kinds of time in my truck, so that's great. And then I have other people go, yeah, but my commute's 2 minutes. Well, my commute's about 3.5 minutes. I have listened to entire books on my commute to and from work. Honestly, I just start and stop it. Now, has it taken me a couple of weeks? But I've gone through a book in a couple of weeks,
Sure,
listening to and from, and a lot of times when I get to work, I may sit there, 5-10 minutes and just let it finish the thought. And I do the same thing when I get home. But after a while, those things count. It accumulates. So don't think you can't do it. And it's the same with a hardcover book. 3 or 4 pages a night, it accumulates. I mean, one of the books that I read that was one of the hardest was the Bible. And I've actually read through the Bible totally 3 times. And I've probably read the New Testament, I don't know, probably 15 times in my lifetime. And people go, wow, that's, and it's just you make a commitment. You read so many, and then that's it. And did it take me a heck of a long time? Yes, it did. All times. It's taken me a whole long time to do it. So you just know, you set it aside because you know it is. It's okay. And start with just setting a really modest goal to read 1 book a month. So I'll give you a really good example on the list that Kenny just gave, the 4 Agreements. It's a very short book. It's an easy read. So is Who Moved My Cheese. Both those books are very short. Start there. Start with an easy book to read and get that done. Just you can put a note on your phone of all the list of books that you have and be able to go through them and just pick them out. Don't get overwhelmed. One of the things my wife does, we both laugh because we kind of collect books. I tend to collect them on audio. She tends to collect hardcovers. She'll buy 8-9 books at a time at the used bookstore that we go to here, and they'll sit forever until she gets through them. If it bothers you to have books sitting there waiting on you, just buy 1 at a time. If you're good with having them there, great. Buy a handful, but know yourself well enough to know that you don't put undue pressure on yourself. And that's really what it is. It's not about the reading, okay? This is what I want to make. People have this idea, well, I don't like to read. You have to think about it. It's not about the reading. It's about the information.
Yeah.
Okay? You may not like to read, but you need the information to run a business. So remember that. You're just getting the information. So if you can turn it and your mindset shift there from, oh my God, I got to read a book, to, hey man, this is information. This could change my world and my business. If you could make that shift, then all of a sudden books become a much different thing to you than just the act of reading.
So talk to the business owner who doesn't have much of a budget for buying a whole lot of books.
Oh man, easy. Library.
Yep.
I cannot tell you. When we didn't have any money, and I've had times in my life I didn't have any money, but I could get a library card because how much did that cost? $0. And now the library has some really cool apps for some of the audiobooks that they have. Overdrive, Hoopla. Reading just doesn't have to be expensive. So Audible's another one if you want to buy for audiobooks. Audible, which is in association with Amazon. I think it's $16-something a month, and you get credits, so you can listen that way. But yeah, some of the apps that the libraries have are fantastic.
Yeah,
so
and they're free.
Yeah, they're free. And so there really is no excuse. Time is not an excuse because you have audiobooks. If you don't have the time to sit, all the phones we have little devices on them that you put earplugs on, and you can listen all day long to all kinds of stuff. Being in your van, traveling all day. So yeah, there's no excuse. If you don't have the actual time to sit on your porch, smoke a cigar, and have a little bourbon and read a book, there are ways.
Man, it's a sunny day here. Now that's what I want to do is I want to blow off my afternoon and go sit on my porch with a book that I have right now that I'm just dying to get back into. So, all right. Well, that was good information. I hope this has challenged you, Proud Nation. Leaders are readers, and it's important. So check out some of the books that Kenny talked about. Check out his list in the show notes today, plus a few others that he added to the list too. So get in there and start reading and let us know what books you're reading. And you can do that over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. I'd love to know what books are impacting you right now. Mm-hmm. That's how I find some of the best information about, I ask people all the time, so what are you reading? I want to know what's influencing your thought right now about leadership and about running a company and business. So, share your book with us over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. A couple other things. I don't have any feedback to read on the show today. But if you'd like to leave us some feedback, we would love to know whether or not this podcast has truly been valuable to you. So if you would, please take a minute to go over to the Apple Podcasts app. Just do a search for our show page over there, Blue Collar Proud Show. Check out the reviews there, and then leave us one of your own. And because really, honestly, having more reviews there really does help us help more people and get the word out about our show. So thank you very much for that. Also, don't forget you can still download our free show app over in the Apple App Store or from Google Play. It's great content. You can listen to the show right there in the app every single Wednesday. When the new show drops, you get an alert. But also, there's some good bonus content there too, and some special offers, which we've got one coming up here that I am really excited about letting you know about. So get the app. It's free. Keep it on your phone. It's a great way to hear every new episode as soon as it comes out. And most of all, just a reminder, come hang out with us in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. Just do a search on Facebook for Blue Collar Proud Nation. You'll find the group. You can ask to join. We'll let you right in, and then you can hang out with some really cool people over there and find out what other people are doing to grow their business. All right. And you can find out about all the other places where you can connect with us by simply going to bcpshow.com/connect. And that's going to do it for this episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. As always, Taylor and I want to thank you for being in the audience and listening every single week. We also want to thank the people that make this show happen. Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders, our community manager. Until next time, remember, it takes the same energy to build a business you hate as it does to build one that you're really freaking proud of. So why not build it the Blue Collar Proud way? We'll see you again right here, same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks.
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.